Good morning once again, Excellencies, Generals, Directors, and Executive Directors, all protocols observed. I took a bit of time to quickly go through the first of the two documents, which focuses on the attitudes and behaviors displayed, demonstrated by service personnel. And by service personnel, I mean men and women in uniform, whether military, whether customs, whether police, whether whatever it is. And I think in very broad terms, I share or concur with all the observations and the findings and the recommendations that the report puts forward. So in this report that is going to be presented, as I said, the first of the two documents, it is put very early on about the role of children in society. That without children, the human species will become extinct. And I don't think those who formulated that document just blindly put down that statement. It is a fact, even though we might not be comfortable accepting it, that Africa since the end of the Cold War has been the theater for a number of conflicts, especially what we call the modern conflicts, which are intrastate and which destroy the institutions of state, in the absence of which all societies, fall prey to a number of atrocities. It is also a fact that it is only in Africa, since the end of the Cold War, that consistently the largest number of peacekeepers per capita have been deployed in this continent. We don't deploy peacekeeping in normal societies. Peacekeeping is deployed in the aftermath of conflict, in Kofi Annan's words, to try and move those post-conflict countries from a state of conflict towards a state of normality or normalization. And I think the report is right, even if it's a perception. I think it is a right perception. The reality is that all men and women in uniform, especially the military, are trained to kill. As a lieutenant, I was told that the purpose, the objective, the only reason why you're being put in uniform and you're being given a weapon and being taught what we call fieldcraft, Americans call it scale at arms or whatever it is so that you march and kill the enemy. Now, one of our old military thinkers, which I love to quote all the time, Clausewitz, the Prussian general, I think in the 19th century, put it this way, that the aim of warfare is to kill the enemy's will to fight. So soldiers are trained, naturally, regimented as killing machines. Now, to now divert such machines towards other purposes is a challenge that is facing our modern society when deployed in peace support operations, and I hope that is the narrative, or deployed in peacekeeping, to be able to use their skills in killing to protect vulnerable populations, especially children. Because I've had occasions sometimes to point out that we expect too much from peacekeeping deployments or PSO. And why I say this is very simple. That in normal societies, and Kenya, as we sit here, is a normal society. Uganda, forget about the LRA, it's largely a normal society. Tanzania is. Even Mali, just coming from the brink of that conflict, is normal society. But in all of these societies, especially in Africa, the institutions of the state are fragile. And I've made the point that the only reason why about 60-70% of all the human and financial resources of the UN are deployed in Africa is because there is no culture of peace. Africans somehow tend to resolve their disputes first through conflict. It's the first choice, to go to conflict or go to war, and then pick up the pieces later. And you can see it in Sudan, South Sudan I mean. You can even see it in Sudan itself. Why in 1955, was it, 56? 1st January, Sudan did not decide to resolve its differences, North and South, but chose to go to war for 20 plus years. In the document, I've at least seen the word protocol, the need for some protocols to be established in order to enhance child protection. And I try to contextualize what protocol is. Protocol is not documents. Protocol is a set of tools that could be used in order to obtain or attain certain ends. And I'll borrow from a recent education that I got on TV, that all the energy that is in the universe was created at the beginning of the universe. And anybody who wants access to that energy must go through certain protocols, which we all do sometimes. That you sit and you concentrate on an issue, and all of a sudden an idea occurs to you, and you scratch your head and say, how stupid. Why didn't I realize all along that this was the idea? So, in order to enhance child protection, given the challenge that soldiers are killing machines, and their first instinct is to shoot in order to suppress the fire that is coming from there, and not make a distinction of whether where the fire is coming from is a minor or is an adult. To the soldier, it doesn't make sense. One of the protocols could be positive identification, to inculcate in the soldier that, yes, your purpose is to kill the enemy there. But in modern conflict, intrastate, the actors do not respect international norms and therefore recruit children. And if you've been in Liberia or read about the history of Liberia, you understand what I'm saying. The training must also be multi-layered. Multi-layered means that when we were introducing ourselves, if we listen a bit more carefully, we realize that there are individuals here, participants, delegates, who have come from training centers. That is one layer. But there are others who have come from the policy level, regional, and then even continental. Because the regional continental set the policy, like ESFCOM, they give training directives as to what should be trained on before the training centers act on them. There are legal advocates I heard from this corner. All of these different dimensions and levels are necessary. So the Save the Children approach must aim to build upon the training center level down to the regional policy level, ECOWAS. I heard ECOWAS, my brother Kamara, if that is the name, for instance, and then ESFCOM. We need to have a sense of what the minimum standards are that every peacekeeper should know in terms of child protection. In the absence of minimum standards, I think we would not be able to measure impact a bit more carefully. And talking about minimum standards, which is standardization, also brings into the equation the question of harmonization. If we're all doing level 200 political science at any university which has colleges, whether you go to college A, college B, college C, the level 200 course outline must be the same. To identify who your core partners should be, training implementers or training providers, some of whom will be APSTAR member institutions. To identify them and make them a part of the process of curricular development and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, the ABSA institutions, whoever they're going to be, will feel that they own the product. Ownership in Africa is a buzzword. And I think Europeans have realized that it is better to work with Mr. Pam in Addis Ababa than to sit as entry led by ZIF in Europe, develop tools and bring them to Africa and say, guys, this is what you're supposed to use. Once again, thanks to the organizers, especially my friend and brother, Francis Onditi, for inviting ABSTA, not me, to be part of this process. I wish to assure you that ABSTA will be willing and ready to work with SCI because we're working towards a common objective. And I look forward to further interactions because I'm also here to learn at the end of the day. Thank you, Excellencies. Thank you, Generals, Directors. All protocols observed. Thanks a lot.